looking to connect a region of over 600 cultural bridges between our lands.
Hello, I'm Alma Angeles. We're moving to the next stage of the pandemic, and as the world resets to the new normal, we find ourselves seeking the balance between health and livelihood, constantly adjusting the boundaries between liberty and responsibility. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. First, let's head on over to Pattaya in Thailand. The mayor warned that if people won't allow the new normal measures imposed on the beach may close again. Esther Odanga joins us live from Pattaya. Hello, Esther.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon, and to all our viewers all around the world. So here's the latest update in Chonburi, Thailand. According to Pattaya News, after a busy weekend in which thousands of domestic tourists, many from Bangkok, visited Bangsan Beach, the mayor of Sansuk in Chonburi City, which contains the popular beach, warned that if people don't follow the rules, the beach may have to close again. This follows a public holiday for Her Majesty the Queen's birthday earlier in the month, in which roads to the beach were temporarily closed to stop more tourists from pouring into the city, which was just reopened last June 1st. Narong Chai Kunpum, the mayor, made a warning after seeing pictures of hundreds on the beach, many not socially distancing, and the majority still not wearing masks despite repeated warnings to do so. Associated Thai Press also reported that despite a firm ban, consumption of alcohol was common, although many people were attempting to hide the fact by keeping booze in coolers and putting them into the plastic cups. Law enforcement has been instructed to strictly watch for large gatherings, drinking and party-type situation on the beach, and mass gatherings remain banned under the current emergency decree to help the potential spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus. Thailand reported no new infection today, and Chonburi has had no confirmed cases of the virus in over 7 weeks. Officials, however, state it is too early to let guard down and stop physical distancing and mask wearing. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Esther, for your updates there in Pattaya. Stay safe, stay alert, stay healthy.
Thank you, and reporting live from Pattaya, this is Esther Odanga. We'll live in interesting times.
The United Nations Children's Fund, or UNICEF, supported the Ministry of Health and Indigenous Medical Services in refurbishing isolation units at 3 specialist hospitals in Sri Lanka. Plus, aside from COVID-19, Sri Lanka is also battling a dengue outbreak. Vanessa Viloria Silva joins us live from Sri Lanka. Hello, Vanessa.
Hi, good afternoon, Alma.
Good afternoon, Vanessa.
Yes, Alma. So here's the latest update here in Sri Lanka. The United Nations Children's Fund supported the Ministry of Health and Indigenous Medical Services, NOH, in refurbishing COVID-19 isolation units at 3 specialist hospitals in the country as part of its ongoing efforts in responding to the pandemic. The isolation units were set up at the Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children, Castle Street Hospital for Women, and the base hospital Minu Wangoda. The hospitals were identified by the Ministry of Health as part of a rapid assessment for COVID-19 patient isolation and treatment purposes. UNICEF contributed with technical expertise and funding of nearly 5 million rupees from the government of Japan, while the construction expertise and labor for the refurbishment was provided by the Sri Lanka Navy. This work involved the refurbishing of existing hospital spaces and the installation of ventilation and sound system, adequate facilities for infection prevention, and water and sanitation for health, and establishing a layout in line with social distancing requirements. And another update, Alma, National Dengue Control Unit, NDCU, says 3-day dengue prevention campaign will be carried out today, June 11. In 6 districts, that have been identified as high-risk area for dengue. Director of the NDCU, Dr. Aruna, said the campaign will kick off in Colombo, Gampaha, Kalutara, Kandy, Ratnapura, and Kegale district. According to the NDCU's statistics, a total of 20,355 dengue cases have been recorded so far within this year, with Colombo district with lead with 2,912 cases. 1,238 dengue cases have been detected within the month of May. Another update, Alma, places of worship are allowed to open for devotees from June 12 and tuition classes from June 29. The Government Information Department said 50 devotees are allowed in a place of worship while only 100 students are allowed in a tuition class. And another update, Alma. All zoological gardens, forest reserves, wildlife sanctuaries, and botanical gardens across the country will be reopened for both local and foreign tourists from June 15. Wildlife Resources Minister S.M. Chandrasena said yesterday. The park would be reoperated adhering to the guidelines issued by the health and security authorities. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you, Vanessa, for your updates there in Sri Lanka.
Thank you so much, Alma. Reporting live from Sri Lanka. This is Vanessa Viloria Silva, and we live in interesting times.
And to Malaysia now, where the country has recorded its lowest number of cases since the MCO, or the Movement Control Order, was enforced. And a new date has been announced on the opening of schools as well. Joining us live from Malaysia is Mirna Soriano. Hello, Mirna. Hello, Mirna. Can you hear me? Or can you please unmute your mic? Hello, Mirna. Okay. First, let's go to Vietnam, putting all their life-saving skills to the test. Firefighters there participated in a rescue competition. Plus, Russia returnees recovered from the COVID-19. In Hanoi, Eliana Faith Sebastian joins us live from Vietnam. Hello, Eliana.
Hi, Alma.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon, Alma. So here are the updates here in Vietnam. Firefighters fight each other in southern Vietnam contest. Firefighting departments from 8 southern Vietnam provinces participated in a hard-fought competition, putting all their life-saving skills to the test. Firemen participated in a qualifying round of the firefighting and rescue competition Tuesday in Barria Vung Tau province. The competition, organized by the Ministry of Public Security and Barria Vung Tau Police, aims to improve firefighters' physical condition and their firefighting skills. 8 teams participated in the competition. They have fielded 160 officers to compete in various categories, including 100-meter obstacle and rescue run, and a 4x100-meter relay involving rescue and firefighting operations. Officers of the Barria Vung Tau team race while carrying equipment such as hoses and pump connectors in a water shooting category.
Hi, Alma.
Officers often practice no water challenges.
For the latest news,
and
Malaysia has recorded the lowest number of new
Lieutenant
COVID-19 positive cases.
of the Barria Vung Tau firefighting department, adding that the competition is also to let the public understand the hardship and dangers the firefighters have to face while rescuing people from a fire. Officers of the Barria Vung Tau team celebrate after finishing first in the competition. The teams from Barria Vung Tau and Bencher have advanced to the national competition, expected to take place in Da Nang City this July. For COVID-19 updates, 3 more Russia returnees recover from COVID-19 in Hanoi. 2 COVID-19 patients in Hanoi and 1 in Ho Chi Minh City were announced recovered Wednesday, bringing Vietnam's tally of active cases down to 13. Both men in Hanoi, aged 40 and 26, returned from Russia on a repatriation flight on May 13. The 2 were treated at the National Hospital for Tropical Diseases, both testing negative for the novel coronavirus twice. said Dr. Tran Van Zang, deputy head of the hospital's virus and parasite department. The Ho Chi Minh City patient was a 44-year-old male, attended on the same flight. He flew to Ho Chi Minh City afterwards and has been quarantined for treatment at the city's Cuchi Field Hospital. Besides them, 32 others on the same flight were also confirmed infected, of whom 24 have recovered. Vietnam has confirmed 332 COVID-19 cases so far, and 320 have recovered. The country has gone nearly 2 months without community transmission of the disease. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Eliana, for your updates there in Vietnam. Stay safe, stay healthy.
Thank you so much, Alma. Reporting live from Da Nang, Vietnam. This is Eliana Sebastian, and we live in interesting times.
ASEAN in Focus will be right back.
Patindi ng patindi at tuloy-tuloy ang pagpapakita ng galing ng ating mga TNG aspirants. Abangan ang kanilang performances sa pinakamalaking talent competition sa buong bansa, Tagisan ng Galing.
This program is presented by SMC Infrastructure, building a better world. Sandig sugar-free white coffee, puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na Sandig sugar-free white coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free. Vet-approved NutriChoice, the only premium dog food with active boost for optimum energy and prebiotics that help strengthen immunity. Just like Catherine Bernardo, gawing listo, ganado ang fur babies niyo. Listo ganado sa NutriChoice. Magnolia Chicken Templados, delicious, ready to cook and freshly marinated daily. Pure Foods Luncheon Meat, pure sarap for every family. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Walang duda, kids can tell na #1 ang Pure Foods Tender Juicy. Ang tender, ang juicy, ang sarap. Co-presented by Cooper, expert in air conditioning and electromechanical. Also engaged in structural, electrical, fire protection, plumbing, and sanitary services. Cooper, your ultimate MEPS and air conditioning solutions. Unlad Incorporated International, fight against global poverty. New San Jose Builders Incorporated. Canrib Corporation, your ventilation and air conditioning specialist. Vita Herbs Philippines Green Coffee, masarap, mabango, at healthy pa. Puerto Rico Resort and Convention Center, Cabiao, Nueva Ecija. I love Puerto Rico. In participation with Rain or Shine Elastomeric Waterproofing Paint, Matinco. R Square Variables Incorporated, CompuZell Computer Services, Saisho International Trading Corporation, DN Steel, IMAC UPB Roof Corporation.
Hey, Gretchen Ho here, and I'm a white coffee lover. Creamy kasi, and very yummy. Pero mas masarap kung hindi nakaka-guilty. Check my new discovery, Sandmade Sugar-Free White Coffee. Puno ng white coffee taste without the sugar, kaya lower calories. Try mo na! Sandmade Sugar-Free White Coffee. Sarap ng white coffee, now sugar-free.
Skyway Stages 1 and 2, the elevated toll road system project, run from a section of the South Luzon Expressway from Alabang to Magallanes, Makati. The Skyway Stage 3 is an elevated expressway connecting the South Luzon Expressway through the existing Skyway Stages 1 and 2 to the North Luzon Expressway via Balintawak. Skyway Stage 4 is an 80-kilometer mixed elevated and at-grade toll road that will connect the existing Skyway system starting from the FTI section all the way to Bulacan.
Listo at ganado ang baby ko sa vet-approved NutriChoice with active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real meat, with essential nutrients to help them grow healthy and happy. Listo, ganado sa NutriChoice.
Ikaw lang ang star ng buhay ko. Para sa akin, perfect ka. Ibang klase ang sarap ng corned beef mo. Ang cheesy ng corned beef mo. Pag Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef, sarap ng corned beef, inangat pa ng real cheese cubes. Kaya perfect ang sarap. Star Chunky Cheese Corned Beef.
Malaysia has recorded its lowest number of cases since the MCO or Movement Control Order was enforced, and a new date also has been announced on the opening of schools there. Joining us live from Kuala Lumpur is Myrna Soriano. Hello, Myrna.
Hi, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
For the latest news, Malaysia has recorded the lowest number of new COVID-19 positive cases yesterday, June 10. This is since the implementation of the Movement Control Order MCO with only 2 cases. This is the lowest figure since MCO began, taking the total number of infections to 8,338 cases. This is the 3rd day in a row where the number of new cases are in a single digits. Of 2 cases, one is an imported case involving a returning Malaysian who got infected abroad. This is according to Dr. Nur Hisham Abdullah, the Health Director General of Health Ministry. He also said in the Health Ministry's daily COVID-19 media briefing on Wednesday evening that the sole locally transmitted case involved a non-Malaysian who was a close contact of positive case in Kuching, Sarawak. Malaysia's COVID-19 recovery rate is now at 84.12% out of the total number of positive cases. Malaysia began its first day of recovery MCO yesterday, which is scheduled to end on 31st of August. Under recovery MCO phase, social distancing rules continue to apply, but many sectors will be reopened, including schools and social activities. Border controls on outsiders continue to be enforced. However, interstate and domestic travel are now allowed. Meanwhile, Senior Minister of Education Dr. Mohammad Radzi Mohammad Jadeen said all schools nationwide will reopen in June 24, involving students sitting for public examinations and equivalent international examinations. He said that the social reopening management guidelines had been distributed to schools on June 4 as a guide so that detailed preparations are carried out before the reopening. He also said that the ministry hopes that the parents and guardians would ensure the children are in good health before sending them back to schools, adding that apart from student, body temperature screening would also be carried out on teachers and personnel in schools. An individual with a body temperature exceeding 37.5 degrees Celsius or is having symptoms would not be allowed in the school compound. Speaking at a special media conference on the opening of school here, Mohammad Radzi explained that the tables in classrooms should be arranged at a distance of 1 meter apart, and there should not be more than 20 students in a classroom. The senior minister, however, said that the capacity is higher for bigger premises such as a hall. He said that intervals would also be staggered in stages with packed food and drink prepared. Pupils will be eating in the classroom under supervision of the teachers. The senior minister also encouraged parents and guardians to prepare food for their children to bring to school. Mohammad Radzi said outdoor activities such as sports and co-curriculum, which involves face-to-face meeting as well as school assembly, would not be conducted until further notice. The residential schools, he said, only students sitting for public examination would be allowed in hostel, where beds have been arranged 1 meter apart, and the number of beds in each room would depend on the available space, besides having staggered dinner time according to the number of students. He also reminded that the guidelines would be improved from time to time based on the advice of the Ministry of Health. The reopening of schools on June 24 involved 500,444 examination class students in 2,440 schools throughout the country. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Myrna, for your updates there in Malaysia. Stay tuned and stay alert. Stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you. Reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This is Myrna Soriano. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Myrna. To Cambodia now, new requirements for newly arrived foreigners. They will now make them pay for a set fee for their COVID-19 lab tests, quarantine, and other treatment services. To give us that update, here is Princess Sinya from our EBC Cambodia Bureau. Hello, Princess.
Hello, Alma. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yeah. So here are the latest updates about the new rules akin to a travel ban. Local businesses have reacted with confusion over the new, expensive, and strict fixed price quarantine requirements announced by the Ministry of Economy and Finance this week. New requirements will force all newly arrived foreigners to pay a set fee for their COVID-19 lab tests, quarantine, treatment services, and cremation if they die as a result of the virus. The new policy has no end date. The Ministry of Health previously prided itself on stating it would provide free medical treatment for COVID-19 positive victims despite their nationalities. According to the letter issued by the Ministry of Health, even if a foreign visitor tests negative for the virus, if another passenger on a flight tests positive, the traveler will be forced to spend 14 days in state-run isolation at a cost of $1,276 US. If the foreign visitors themselves test positive, then they will be forced to a government-selected hospital at $225 per day and $100 for each required virus test. Another $1,500 will be applicable for cremation if the foreigner dies. Many have stated that these costs could be claimed through the insurance as travelers will continue to require $50,000 worth of travel insurance before they enter the kingdom. In response to the extreme drop in foreign tourist arrivals, the Ministry of Tourism has attempted to promote domestic tourists to visit the kingdom through implementing new hygiene policies and training for those working in the industry. Back to you, Alma.
All right, thank you very much, Princess, for your updates there in Cambodia.
Thank you so much to Alma, live reporting from Phnom Cambodia. This is Princess Alamanan. We live in interesting times.
Thank you, Princess. Okay, let's now find out the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic on the video game industry. Reporting from Canberra, Australia, here's Roncel Castro.
Despite the trying times and peril that anyone might find themselves in, especially during the pandemic, it has still been a struggle for both the gaming industry and its consumers. With people under lockdown and the transportations of goods hindered due to the restrictions. However, with this situation, most gaming companies have used this disadvantage as a leverage for their market, seeing it as an opportunity to deliver the demand for their consumers.
With such new and awaited releases like Nintendo's Animal Crossing New Horizons, released last March 30th, and Square Enix's Final Fantasy VII Remake, released on April 10th, and with Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition to be released on May 29. Square Enix, being well known for its Final Fantasy franchise, made by creator Hironobu Sakaguchi, released its long-awaited game on April 10th, 2020, Final Fantasy VII Remake, directed by Tetsuya Nomura, Naoki Hamaguchi, and Motomu Toriyama, which were well-known figureheads within the franchise, as all three individuals having their fair share of contributions within the series. Nomura, who worked on the original Final Fantasy VII, as well as being the director of Final Fantasy XV, and the mainstay director of the Kingdom Hearts franchise. Then there is Toriyama, who also worked on the original 7, as well as Dissidia and other Final Fantasy titles. And Naoki Hamaguchi, who has also worked on other Final Fantasy projects and is the current co-director of the remake. The remake takes place in the metropolis of Midgar. The overall first act retells the story of Cloud Strife, former soldier first class who once served the multinational industrial enterprise known as Shinra. Now, with Cloud being hired by the radicalist eco-terrorist group known as Avalanche, he meets old friends and new comrades, as well as fighting his way through fate as he and Avalanche try to save the dying world of Gaia from Shinra's exploitation of Mako energy, as well as finding clues about Cloud's past and his battle through fate with the mysterious Sephiroth, the one-winged angel, which will decide the course of the planet's future. The game was long awaited by fans worldwide, with the game receiving a warm welcome as well as an award for being the Game of Show Award during the 2019 E3 release. From the start of the release, the game sold 3.5 million copies worldwide within just 3 days, breaking the record for most sold game on the PlayStation platform. In fact, in order to meet the demand and combat the disruption of supply chains during the quarantine, Square Enix made the decision to ship the game earlier than expected to both Europe and Australia than the official April 10th release date, prioritizing the needs of the fans that support the franchise.
With the circumstances under lockdown, digital video game spending hits an all-time high as reported by market tracker Superdata on the 23rd April 2020, with the overall revenue for the month of March up 11%, according to the industry tracker, and it may rise up as the quarantine continues. Once again, this is Ronald Janti Castro from Canberra, Australia, and I am one with 25.
ASEAN in Focus, we'll be right back.
Gia, shoutout sa lahat ng mga nasa kani-kanilang mga bahay, mga timbahay natin dyan. Gia. Yo, COVID-19 ka lang. Yo, paano ba dapat iwasan? Ace Gut Beats nga pala, Ace Guts.
Ace Guts on the beat.
Masyado ka na bang natatakot, nagugulumihanan sa mga napapanood mo? Kakilakilabot na balita na kamamatay na virus, dulutay pagkalito. Kakabaka-baka kahit sa loob ka ng bahay, baka ka madapuan. Parang baka pa sa pamilihan yung mga kailangan, baka ka maubusan. Pahabol-habol, sino may alcohol, baka may maskatol sa may bandaron. May bumibili pa nga ng 2 kahon, nilalabo nata nila hasta mo katol. Gusto ko namang hamon, kailan magkakaroon? Imbis na mataranta, pati maghinahon, magdiwangan magsalo-salo sa ganito sitwasyon. Manatili ka sa bahay, mas bigas ka ron. Sumunod sa alituntunin dahil ang magsisi lagi na sa dulo. Minsan ang kapahamakan wala sa virus kundi sa katigasan ng ulo. Walang turuan, dapat ang tulungan dahil yun ang pinakamaigi. Hugas kamay sa lababo, hindi sa paninisi, habaan ng pisi. Basahin mo mabuti, nakita mo balita bago mo ikalat, dapat manigurado. Pag hindi ka naging responsable, magigimit siya ng bagong pagtatalo. Sumulan mo sa'yo ang pagbabago, pangako sa'yo may mababago. Kapag ang tama, minamasama, iba ka nalang layunin, hindi yung mga tao. Basta sumunod ka, kumonsulta, saka mong pumunta, dapat nga malugod ka. Dahil may mga taong handang ialik at ilang buhay para hindi ka madapuan ng sakit. Wala yung kapalit upang yung makamit dito sa buhay, dito sa kalagitnaan ng panahon ng krisis, hindi dapat ibinawaglit. Saludo sa mga frontline ng ating bayan. Di lang sila, lahat tayo ay may kinalaman. Huwag mo hayaang malantakan na parang halaman. Bigyan mo ang iyong sarili ng kaalaman. Wala munang hahawak ng bola, beso-beso kay lolo't lola. Baka hindi lang paggalang ang maipasa mo, coronavirus. Iwan sa labas ang nice shoes, imbis na magchichirya, right foot, veg and fruits. At kapag nasunod mo ng lahat, ikaw pa'y alanganin. Alanganin na kontrol, idaan mo na sa panalangin. Nakarami mang napapahamak, tandaan mong di ka dapat na matakot. Dapat sumunod ka sa kanyang utos, sa dakilang manggagamot.
Singapore is setting up screening centers across the island as it ramps up testing to contain the spread of the coronavirus. As some workers return to work after a partial lockdown lasting nearly 2 months. Take a look.
Test is good for us. We can himself we can know is how's my condition. So that's good for me.
Four such centers have so far been set up, and the city-state is relying on aggressive testing and contact tracing to contain the spread of the coronavirus as it gradually eases restrictions. As more activities resume and people start interacting more freely, there could be an inevitable rise in the number of new COVID-19 cases in the coming weeks. According to the Straits Times, a contact tracing device will also be rolled out by the end of this month. The multi-ministry task force handling the outbreak said at a virtual press conference. Health Minister Gan Kim-yong, who co-chairs the multi-ministry task force, said that they expect that there will be a rise in the number of COVID-19 cases in the coming days and weeks. And this is inevitable. They have seen this happening in many other countries as they open their economy and community, he said. But such risks can be mitigated, particularly with basic hygiene practices, as well as active surveillance testing, which he said is a key enabler of Singapore's overall efforts to reopen safely. Testing had previously focused on groups such as preschool staff, residents, and staff of senior homes and construction workers. It has recently been expanded to include individuals with acute respiratory infection when they first see a doctor, starting with seniors aged 65 and above, among others. Frontline workers supporting COVID-19 operations will also be tested. Indonesia posted a record number of coronavirus infections, sparking calls from health experts for the world's fourth most populous country to slam the brakes on easing restrictions. Last week, the capital Jakarta opened mosques for the first time in nearly 3 months as its governor announced the gradual reopening of closed offices, restaurants, shopping malls, and tourist attractions. Similar easing measures are happening across the vast archipelago, home to nearly 270 million people, as the government rolled out a new normal policy aimed at heading off a collapse in Southeast Asia's biggest economy. But the moves come as Indonesia records a surge in coronavirus cases, with the one-day toll jumping to a new record of 1,241 infections on Wednesday. The country's COVID-19 task force chalked up the rise to more effective monitoring. Task Force spokesman Ahmad Yuryanto said that the increase in new infections is the result of aggressive tracing. He also said this proves that tracing is revealing more confirmed cases. Officially, Indonesia has more than 34,000 cases of COVID-19 and 1,959 deaths, but with one of the world's lowest testing rates, the country's real toll is widely believed to be much higher. The surge in infections comes after authorities in Muslim-majority Indonesia struggled to contain a mass movement of travelers at the end of Ramadan last month. Light passengers form long queues at document checkpoints following new rules to prevent the spread of the coronavirus at Jakarta's international airport. And officials and airlines now require travelers to present multiple documents, including health certificates, for clearance to board aircrafts. Take a look. Okay, ASEAN in Focus. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Robin, and I'm 5 years old. My mom and dad said many people are getting sick. That is why we have to stay at home. That is why I cannot go to school. I cannot play outside, and I cannot even visit my friends. We can only go outside if we visit the doctor, or if we need to buy some food. And when we get home, we have to wash our hands. While I'm at home, I do my homework, clean up my toys, help cooking our food, and help my parents with their work. Please stay home so we can all play together again. Bye!
Light passengers form long queues at document checkpoints following new rules to prevent the spread of the coronavirus at Jakarta's International Airport. Officials and airlines require travelers to present multiple documents, including health certificates, for clearance to board aircrafts. Take a look.
Iya, pandemi inilah pemicu juga kan, ikut pemicu. Udah 2 bulan saya vakum, nggak ada kerjaan. Saya sementara di sini ngontrak, uang kontrakan saya mesti bayar tiap bulan. Jadi saya mau ngomong kan harus apa untuk bayar kontrakan lagi, saya kan nggak kerja gitu, nggak ada pemasukan. Makanya saya usahain hari ini saya harus bisa terbang, karena saya kalau mau pulang pun udah nggak ada tempat.
Cabin crew in protective suits, health certifications for passengers, mandatory face masks, and longer check-in times. This is the new reality of mass air travel. And as people dream of taking to the skies once more, they face the prospect that changes to curb the spread of coronavirus will be even more challenging than those brought in after the 2001 terror attacks in the U.S. In addition to the strict security measures commonplace around the world since then, passengers will now encounter a barrage of checks for COVID-19. And the United Nations Civil Aviation Agency has drawn up a set of guidelines for safe flying in the wake of the pandemic, from mandatory wearing of masks to the disinfection of areas people come in contact with. In addition, industry body, the International Air Transport Association, or IATA, has suggested governments collect passenger data, including health information ahead of travel, and that access to airports be restricted to staff and same-day travelers. Other measures outlined in their guidelines include the redesign of gate areas to reduce congestion, faster and smoother boarding, and baggage collection procedures, and even prohibiting queues for the washrooms to limit passenger interaction.
Aujourd'hui, Air France a pris un certain nombre de mesures, donc le port du masque en est un. Nous avons également un nettoyage très approfondi de nos avions et nos avions sont régulièrement désinfectés avec du virucide. Une chose très importante aussi qu'il faut savoir, c'est que l'air de nos avions est renouvelé toutes les 3 minutes. On a des filtres vraiment de haute efficacité qui ne permettent pas justement à ces petites particules, ces virus de passer. Et ça, c'est vraiment une chose très importante pour préserver la sécurité de nos passagers.
Voir que l'air présent en cabine vient pour 50% à peu près de l'extérieur de l'avion. Ça passe par des groupes de conditionnement d'air pour avoir de l'air à la bonne température. Et les 50 autres %, c'est de l'air qui est prélevé en cabine, qui passe au travers de filtres et qui est réinjecté avec l'air climatisé.
Aujourd'hui, les coefficients de remplissage d'Air France oscillent entre 30 et 50%, avec une moyenne de 40%, ce qui nous permet de gérer complètement la distanciation physique à bord de nos avions.
Implementing new regulations is already proving challenging and chaotic. There are some signs of recovery as major economies ease lockdowns, with IATA pointing to a growth in flight numbers from April to May, but flying looks set to struggle to return to pre-virus levels. A confusing patchwork of rules imposed by countries at different stages in tackling their outbreaks makes it tricky for consumers to plan holidays or visit family abroad. And some nations are maintaining bans on travelers from hard-hit nations or requiring people to enter quarantine on arrival, typically for a 14-day period. Countries that have kept the virus in check are looking at creating travel bubbles or reciprocal agreements with other places on similar outbreak curves, but these can have onerous requirements. A fast lane for essential business and official travel between some parts of China and Singapore has been launched, but travelers need sponsorship and have to take a virus test before departure and on arrival. Many who previously flew frequently may simply choose not to for the time being. In other news, President Duterte and Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi have sought strengthened bilateral cooperation to address the coronavirus disease pandemic that continues to grapple both the Philippines and India. During their engaging and productive telephone conversation on Tuesday night, President Duterte and Prime Minister Modi acknowledged the need for Manila and New Delhi to be partners in fighting COVID-19, according to Malacanang in a press statement issued on Wednesday. The statement said the leaders reaffirmed their shared commitment to harness international and bilateral cooperation to effectively address the coronavirus pandemic. As of Wednesday, the Philippines has reported 23,732 COVID-19 infections. On the other hand, confirmed COVID-19 cases in India have already climbed to over 277,000. The palace said President Duterte and Prime Minister Modi had lauded each other for their efforts to manage the COVID-19 pandemic. President Duterte, it added, also took note on India's 2.82% COVID-19 fatality rate, which is among the lowest in the world. Malacanang said they also underscored the importance of sharing valuable lessons and best practices on addressing COVID-19. Malacanang said President Duterte had also thanked Prime Minister Modi for allowing India's export of pharmaceutical products amid the pandemic. The palace said President Duterte had also commended India for its efforts to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. It said Prime Minister Modi had ensured President Duterte that the Philippines would get affordable medicines and COVID-19 pharmaceutical products, including hydroxychloroquine. Hydroxychloroquine is an anti-malarial drug that's being used for the treatment of some COVID-19 patients. Malacanang said President Duterte and Prime Minister Modi had both expressed appreciation for the mutual assistance extended to repatriated Filipino and Indian nationals affected by the quarantine restrictions during the pandemic. It added that the two leaders had also agreed to further strengthen cooperation in the context of Association of Southeast Asian Nations, or ASEAN-India Dialogue Partnership. President Duterte had vowed to preserve and build ties between the Philippines and China as the two nations mark the 45th anniversary of their diplomatic relations on June 9. In a letter to Chinese President Xi Jinping dated June 9, President Duterte emphasized the need to strengthen the Philippine-China partnership amid challenges including the coronavirus disease, health crisis. He said, as the entire world continues to face challenges to security and stability and the rule of law, and with the rise of non-traditional emerging threats such as the COVID-19 pandemic, further strengthening Philippine-China partnership takes on even greater significance, and we must forge on and ensure that the potential of our special ties is fully realized. President Duterte said the two nations' anniversary is an auspicious time to reaffirm shared aspirations and the principles they have committed to uphold as enshrined in the joint communique signed on June 9, 1975. He said these same sacrosanct principles for peaceful coexistence and mutually beneficial cooperation will remain our lodestar as we continue to work together as partners under our comprehensive strategic cooperation. He also described China as a close neighbor and valued friend, ensuring President Xi of even greater peaceful and friendly cooperation in the coming years. On Tuesday, Malacanang said the relationship between the Philippines and China is now at the renaissance stage, hopeful that the sea row between the two nations would be resolved. Barbers and hairdressers in Malaysia are back in business as a lockdown to contain the spread of the coronavirus is eased, and many people make a beeline for their first haircut in nearly 3 months. Take a look.
I feel relieved and happy at the same time. Yeah, because this is my first haircut after like 4 months.
Malaysian Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin announced on Sunday that the country's first ever movement control order will continue until August 31 under the new Recovery Movement Control Order, or RMCO, set that began on June 10. Interstate travel was allowed to resume on June 10 with the exception of the areas declared under an Enhanced Movement Control Order, or EMCO, as the nation moves towards the COVID-19 recovery stage. Malaysia reopened nearly all economic and social activities after a nearly 3-month lockdown. Malaysia has entered a recovery phase until the end of August, with certain prohibitions still in place. Nightclubs, pubs, karaoke bars, theme parks, and reflexology centers will stay closed during this period. Contact sports are those that involve many spectators, such as football, and activities involving mass groups are still banned. Officials warned restrictions will be reinstated if infections soar again. The coronavirus cases there is now 8,338, deaths at 118, recovered cases 7,014. And finally, a new version of Google's mapping service being rolled out will display pandemic-related transit alerts and let people know when buses or trains might be crowded. Updated versions of the free app for smartphones powered by Apple or Google-backed Android software will also let drivers know about COVID-19 checkpoints or restrictions on their routes. We're producing features to help you easily find important information if you need to venture out, whether it's by car or public transportation. That is according to Google Maps Product Management Director Ramesh Nagarjan in a blog post. Alerts about COVID-19 checkpoint notifications are to begin with crossings between the U.S. and Canada or Mexico. When people use maps for trips by public transit, Google will provide available information regarding whether schedules are limited, masks must be worn, or crowds are expected. Having this information before and during your trip is critical for both essential workers who need to safely navigate to work, and will become more important for everyone as countries around the world begin to reopen, according to Mr. Nagarajan. The transit alerts are rolling out in Argentina, Australia, Belgium, Brazil, Britain, Colombia, France, India, Mexico, the Netherlands, Spain, Thailand, and the U.S., where information from local transit agencies is available. People using maps to navigate to medical facilities or COVID-19 testing centers will be shown reminders to verify eligibility and guidelines to avoid being turned away, according to Mr. Nagarajan. Alerts for those traveling to medical facilities will be available in Indonesia, Israel, the Philippines, South Korea, and the U.S. starting this week. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nations. Stay updated about the ASEAN region. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.